So first and foremost, I just want to show you the power plant that is going to be powering all these batteries. This was actually a project I did previously, never actually edited it and recorded it, but let's just say we have an insane number of engines that are currently going that I'm going to go ahead and pause because I don't need to be wasting the wood, because guess what, we're going to need all the wood for temporarily. That's right, our new build. We are going to be building a nuclear battery facility. Now, as you can see, I first and foremost need to go ahead and mark out where we are going to be building this. I chose this location because how I want it to operate is similar to an actual nuclear reactor. So with a nuclear reactor, you have kind of a core area, and that core area obviously is where the water is stored. It's not actually water, but it's a cooling agent, and then they drop the rods down into it. So in my mind, I imagine how cool would it be to build something very similar to that, but then obviously instead of rods and instead of the actual power production of a nuclear reactor, we drop the batteries down into it. So in essence, it almost acts similarly, but obviously slightly different. So I chose this location because this is all water spawns. So if you see those little rocks in the bottom and the middle there, that's where water is going to spawn. So right now I'm designing out the core of the facility. So that way water will always refill my core, and if I dam it up properly, then we should be able to hold water in there, in essence, indefinitely and never run out of it, so that it kind of maintains that nuclear reactor core aesthetic. So I'm currently marking trees to be demolished. It does take me a little bit of time because I'm having to slowly count because I want to make sure this is all done mathematically correct. And then obviously next we're going to start dynamiting. So the goal is, as if you've ever seen my largest and best Timberborn video, best battery and Timberborn video, I go all the way down to the bottom. So that way you build as high as you can, and that's where you place your battery, and that will allow you to get the best battery you can, which later on you will discover just how much that is. Now I need to construct a work site, and on this build and in this gameplay, I have all robots basically that work for me. So I need to construct basically what the new zone is going to look like. And so I have basically connected also all the power line from that power plant all the way up here so that I can set up some robo chargers and charging stations. But I'm also going to need to set up some like wood storage, dynamite storage, because sadly my other location cannot reach. So that's why the dynamite has only gone up so far. So we do need to construct a brand new zone and a new area. We're going to call this the job site. I think I'm trying to think of local nuclear reactor sites, maybe like Area 51, we could call it that or something just for fun. Although I don't think that that's actually a nuclear reactor, but a literal nuke site. But yeah, so we're going to have to go ahead and build up a job site here so that we can continue. And I will be honest, planning this thing out probably takes almost as much time as building it. So going through and planting out, because I do more than just a core, I also build out arms and extensions in essence. But mapping everything out, thinking of everything, and doing that all probably took a good solid couple hours. And then actually doing the building, it may have only taken about, I would say probably about an extra 50% time, or maybe 2 times as long, just because there was a lot of me having to pause and unpause certain areas so that they could build effectively. But we basically start getting things built up, and the job site starts to get constructed, so that way we can start to expand, and it does take some time. We do have a good number of robots. I want to say we have about 250 robots total in our base, and I did do several other big projects leading up to this. So I had created a wood farm, as any good Timberborn player does, so that way I could completely stock all my power plants as well as start stocking up for this project. So I have 38,000 wood stocked, because I also have a bunch of storage for wood as well. I also created a dynamite facility that was producing a bunch of dynamite, and then as you saw, I produced the power plant. So with all of these, I have 250 robos. All those beavers are not going to come over here, the iron bots, but because I'm still going to need them to continue with the wood farm, the dynamite, and the power plant, so that way things can continue operating. But I will try to bring over a good handful to work only on this project. So now we're starting to clear out some more trees, and I also increased the paths a little bit because the initial inside path is roughly where I'm going to be placing the original core pieces. So I need a path on the outside of that. And now we're going to kind of start slowly mapping out what the arms are going to look like. And remember, so what I'm trying to design this off of is simply what a nuclear symbol looks like. Because I don't, nuclear reactors themselves, they're kind of more just a straight up circle that goes up, and then you see those plumes of smoke coming out. That just seems to me like that would have been too small, uh, too small of a project. That would be nice for once. So this time what we're doing is we're going to actually create a nuclear reactor or a nuclear battery setup. I don't want to call it a reactor because it's not producing energy itself. But we're going to go ahead and create a nuclear battery by actually creating the nuclear symbol and combining that with the core. And basically, it should hopefully reflect and be able to generate a lot more power, or maintain a lot more power, I should say, than an actual typical if I had just done the core only. Even if I had done a huge core, which I could have just done a huge circle around this foundation here. But the core I wanted to drill all the way down to the bottom, and I didn't want to have to do that if I wanted to do something massive. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this video. There's a lot going into it. Like I said, the prep work honestly takes a long time before we even start building, because I have to double check things. I want to make sure that I pause certain builds so that we don't accidentally dam up the water preemptively and then have water, leaking and going around my base. So, and then obviously trying to make things mirror image and having dead trees in the way, it does take some time. And then, but honestly, it is going to be great once it is completed and once we start building. And I will say this project is probably my most ambitious one yet by far. This one took, I want to say it was about 12 hours of recorded gameplay. And I did try to record as much as possible so I could grab pieces from it as I was going. But it was 12 hours of recorded gameplay and footage that I had to then go through and edit. And let's just say it, again, the most ambitious project so far to date. It probably took me the same amount of hours, maybe more, to edit it down. So, this was about like a 20 to 30 hour project. And it's my first Timberborn project back on the channel. Timberborn is my most viewed project, and I think the most beloved of the channel. And I understand why. Timberborn is such a fun game. It's such a cute game with the beavers. This is based on, I believe, update 4, and I do want to let you know this footage was recorded back in, I believe it was 2023. This is like 2 years ago footage. I'd recorded it when I was doing my 4 projects. I got project 1 done and recorded. Didn't get project 2 or 3. I started working on the nuclear one, and then just, I kind of paused on the channel for a little bit while we were growing our accounting firm and didn't have as much time to work on it. So first one back. Obviously, there's been more updates to Timberborn. They have zip lines now, and I think they have maybe even solar and stuff, or windmills and turbines. So there's been a lot more to Timberborn. This is an older version. So version 0.5.9.1. So let's just say things have changed a little bit. But this was definitely the biggest project I've done. And, I even have the huge projects as well, where we have, I created massive dams with a massive, not necessarily a dam, but the huge water turbine farms where, I basically generate a whole bunch of HPH with water turbines alone. So that was a big project. I also, created the biggest water reservoir possible by demoing out, and that took a lot of dynamite, and that literally dropped the frames of my game down to like 2 frames per second. So I've done a couple massive projects, but this one is the biggest by far. So especially because, I'm having to like map things out. It would have been so nice if there was like a blueprint mode at this point where I can maybe copy and paste, but everything you have to do by hand and click and do all that. I did have to destroy storage I had put there so I could complete what it was going to be looking like. And I will make some changes. So I'm just kind of map things out just to get a feel for what it's going to look like once it is as tall as possible. Because I did discover I need to add an additional levee to each one so that I can actually transfer the power between the batteries. That was one thing I hadn't mapped out. Originally, I just had them two by two, one wide and then just two going side by side. But that wouldn't allow me to transfer the power between the batteries. So I ended up having to add a whole extra levee per battery, which I ended up getting a total of 72 batteries on here. So you can imagine just how many extra levees that's going to create, how much extra time that's going to be. But we had to make sure, obviously, we did it right. And so I'm also pausing all of these so again they don't end up damming things up and water can continue to flow, especially in the early stages of the build. But we have not really started building that much, and it's already taken so much of my time. So I just want to remind you, this is definitely the biggest build we have yet. And there will be a couple times where a couple beavers will get stuck, and we'll have to unstick them. And we'll have to get them unstuck, as typical beavers. But it looks like we're finally building up the last arm here. So this is going to be the final one. It's going to be the top of the symbol. We do make some mistakes. I ended up making some changes because I didn't like how it was looking. But we are slowly going to start working our way up to it and getting then kind of the whole outline of what we're looking for in this. And so, and I will say as well, I hope you guys enjoy kind of the longer format. I remember in some of my earlier battery videos, some folks were saying that, hey, wish it was a little bit longer, just so that way you can kind of see the whole process. But I kind of, yeah, I don't like how the top is just that little bit. So I end up just making a big straight line at the top. It'll make it easier because what I'm going to do that you're going to see later is I will construct some of the floodgates so that I can let water out of our arms up there. And I'm just calling these segments that go off of it arms. Arms or wings, one of the two. So if you hear me reference it, that's kind of what I'm talking about. But I will end up constructing floodgates so that I can let water out. So what's going to end up happening is water will flow from the core into the arms, because the arms are going to have their own batteries. And then from there, we're going to construct floodgates. So that way they can let water out as well if needed. So I need to first be able to construct the height of the batteries. That's the important part. And then, like I mentioned, we're going to construct some floodgates so that we can see exactly what it looks like. All right, so that looks good. Now, I will end up placing more floodgates later, but we are just trying to get a feel for just how high this thing can go. And this is, again, one of the longer processes is simply increasing, because at this point, there was no vertical that I could build up, so I have to physically click each one by one or drag. So it does take a while to get this all built up, but it is nice. It's just, I was trying to look at the shadow every now and again just to see if the shadow got up to the same height. But this is what does take a good amount of time to even just get things mapped out. But now that we at least have the shape that we're looking for and everything as we want it to be, that does make it easier. So now we're just filling things in. This is more kind of a redundancy thing. I was able to just kind of turn on some music or some YouTube and just go after it. So it really wasn't too bad to do it, but it does just take time. So getting it all constructed. The nice thing is we do have some beavers obviously working. So some of the levees have been built, they've been constructed, so the foundation is currently being built, which is great. It's nice that they're able to work while I am also trying to blueprint and map things out. There's a couple times where I have had to delete some things, but for the most part, they're able to start working on it well ahead of time. And the last thing I will end up basically building, besides obviously batteries, but as far as using levees, is going to be the core, because I do need them to use that pathway to get around. So some of the last things I'll get to is going to be that core section. So even over here, I will have to make updates. I actually don't use levees everywhere. I end up using just some normal platforms to transfer the power in certain areas, just because that is just easier. And so I end up utilizing that method. And the levees, really the whole purpose of it is I just want to maintain and hold obviously water. So we want to make sure this thing's completely watertight and sealed. So we do have all that taken care of so that no water is going to be leaking out unless I want it to. There is a little bit of I think some sort of a visual glitch in the game where it does look like water does come out of some of the levee pieces, which you'll see later on once it's all completed. But for the most part, this is basically it. All right, so it looks like we had finished off the metal there, and here is the design of the first arm, or the top arm, I should say. Now, it obviously doesn't have the batteries on it yet, and I'm not going to put the batteries on it yet because I do need the beavers to build everything out before I can place the batteries down. And that's important, because if I start to build, as they're building up, and then they start to basically be able to build sideways. Because what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to create a section on the top, basically a big staircase that gets all the way to the top of one of them, and then they're going to have to just slowly build basically one column at a time, or 2 columns at a time if they're able to hit a junction. Then they can kind of split and hit a fork where they can start going different ways. But basically it'll be 1 column at a time. So if I were to actually place the batteries down right now, they would build those, and that would then block the rest of the building ability. So, but as you can tell, now we're building arm number 2. You know, we've already taken a whole bunch of time. It's not a quick process, but it is a necessary process. Now, I will end up building those floodgates over on this side as well, but just like as always, I just want to get everything up to the exact same number, the exact same amount, and then I'll come back through and I'll delete them as a group and then place the floodgates. All right, now we're going to go ahead and delete some to create the floodgates. So we're just doing double floodgates instead of triple. I felt like double just looked a little bit better than the triple floodgates, so that's why we ended up going with double instead of going triple. Not that I'm really a big aesthetic person, but I don't know, I just felt like the double was just a little bit better than the triple. So we almost have the second arm wrapped up. Again, obviously we're missing the middle segments that would connect the arms together, but that will be done towards the end where we will complete that, just because we will need to maintain that pathway so the beavers can access all the different areas. And I will end up building 2 different staircases so that way the beavers can actually access and get to the top. But this is going to be the second arm design, and then ideally this third arm over here is going to be a complete mirror image of the second arm to the left of it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and insert the floodgates on that third arm. Get it all designed, get those double floodgates in. And then hopefully we're going to have some good old symmetry on both sides. Perfect. This is us wrapping up arm number 3, and now we get to go into dynamite mode. So we're going to start blowing a hole into the core. While we're waiting for dynamite to get set, we're just going to go ahead and start making out pathways, so that way our beavers will be able to build and climb to the top again of these constructions and these builds, so that things can work. Now, some of this I do slow down, and some of it is just like my frames just go down. Oh, it's not everything is slowed down. This one is. But what I do try to do is, in some areas, if they're able to be reached, is I do try to get all the dynamite down so that I can just trigger it all with one explosion. It's just my favorite way to do it, personally. But yeah, I just love the dynamite effect in this game. It is really cool and really fun. Very difficult, by the way, because I have to build this staircase down into it. And so dynamiting even this and getting the core ready took a lot of time, because there's a lot of work I had to do and then undo, if that makes sense. So even just demoing out the core was not a very easy task. But we do end up getting through it, and so we end up knocking out a bunch of it, and boom, we're basically all squared away, and core looks good. We're able to delete the final couple things, and now we have a completed core. That's what we're going to be dropping batteries down into. I'm now going to go ahead and connect the arms with the actual core segment. And so I call this the heart of the storm, just the little core. But I did end up building some stairs and batteries. But of course, we got a couple beavers that got stuck, so we had to get them unstuck. Which one of the things is, again, I have to be a little bit conscious and aware so that I can make sure to pause things. But I do have 2 different staircases, the one on the top left and then the one on the bottom that lead up to the top. So that way we can at least get 2 different areas that the beavers can be building around and constructing. And so this will allow them to basically have 4 different ways for them to go as of right now. So on the bottom one, they're able to go and then split. On the top one, they're able to go up and split. I think they may be able to split twice, because they can, or they're almost able to split twice. All right, we're going to start outlining the core. So the core is going to have basically 4 corners, obviously, and they're going to go diagonal, the corners. And so I will end up, I believe, constructing platforms to kind of connect the power, but the core itself is going to basically go along those kind of 4 corners and more of a diagonal look. So that way it looks a little bit more like a circle versus just a square. That was what I wanted to try to avoid, if at all possible. All right, now we're starting to actually build up the core a little bit more and actually get walls going. So this is a good sign. It means we're getting closer. You can see one of these arms is almost completed, actually, the one to our bottom left there. We even have a couple of the floodgates up. All right, but I will say probably the most time consuming is just how long it takes the beavers to move and how far they have to run to get places, because it is such a massive project. And since I am going to be blocking things off, of course, we flood some things. I did try to build a lot of things on platforms, so that way we wouldn't have to worry about floods at all. And now next, what we're going to do is we're going to start constructing, because we have to connect all of it to power. So I do connect this kind of central power line to it all, and I get it all mapped out so that we will be able to simply disconnect our beaver chargers and our robo chargers and simply connect it to this power line. And so it's going to connect at the bottom on the opposite side of the top arm to try to give a little bit more of an aesthetic appearance. It's almost like plugging in, if you imagine plugging a nuclear reactor or nuclear battery setup just to a little 120 volt for us Americans. That's at least what I imagine it looks like. And so it looks like we are very close to having this arm completed. We will, as you can see, the floodgates I'll have to build towards the end. All right, first arm is complete. All we're missing now are the batteries and the floodgates, but we have all the levees done. So we're gonna start constructing our very first batteries and get those completed. And then obviously to make the batteries 100%, we need to dynamite things out to allow them to hit that maximum depth. So boom, first completed batteries, and you can see the dynamite is all done. So that means that those are able to reach the maximum depth. All right, another battery completed. All right, and another one is done. So I do apologize. I would have probably recorded things a little bit better. This was, again, 2 years ago. I wasn't the best at video editing, much less recording. So we have a completed arm example where we also have the floodgates down there. So that is good. We don't have a fully completed arm with all the batteries set up yet, but we're going to slowly get working on that. We're going to start dynamiting out. Right now, all I really care about is just making sure the batteries can hit that maximum depth. I'm not going to dynamite all the arms down to 0. That'd be way too much work. We got our power line completed. We have our paths going. We are almost done on the second arm with everything that is needed. We just have a couple more levees to complete, get some dynamite. Now we're getting the batteries going on the next arm, so that's great news. We still have one more levee to complete, and the top arm is now done and completed, and we're going to start dropping the batteries in on this one. This one's obviously format slightly different, so the batteries are going to be slightly different, not quite look the same. But I do need to do a whole lot of pausing and unpausing when doing this, because of the fact that if they start to build something too soon, like let's say they built one of these inner junctions too soon, it would block the construction for the rest of them. So typically I'd have to pause the game, lay things out, and then pause those objects, and then only unpause the furthest one away. So our left arm is almost complete. We have almost the right side completed on one of the arms, and almost there. We're getting close. I won't be able to complete the right arm because of the pathway that is needed. That'll be one of the last things I do complete. So we should be able to get the top arm and the left arm completed basically all the way. And there it is. The first arm is completed. Top arm's working its way down. It's taking its sweet old time. But again, the nice thing is I had a bunch of the resources already stocked up. And so here's going to be the last battery built. Perfect. So the top second completed arm is done. Now we're actually going to start working on the core a little bit. So the core arms are going to be the next thing we work on. And one thing you might notice is there's actually a slightly different object used instead of a levee or a platform for the arms. So as you can see, there's a little gap, and that's because I just built platforms there. I didn't want levees. I think originally I was doing dams, but the water was damming them up pretty good to the point where it was difficult to have the water come through. So I just built platforms. So they're 2 high platforms. So that's going to allow the water to flow into the arms. It'll just be way easier, way smoother. I want to worry about any water flowing over the side of the core because that's what we want to avoid. All right, 75% core batteries are completed. We only have one more side to do, and so that means we're going to actually lock the core, or as I like to say, close the core down. So that's going to be the final levee build right there. Once that is completed, we will be done with levees. Our core will be locked in, and here you can see the water coming right into the arm as planned. We have the core completed. Now we're on the final battery assemblies, you guys. We're getting so close here. It's just going to be the final couple batteries on this arm on the right hand side, and then we will have all the batteries done. They will all be at max depth, and we will have completed our nuclear battery facility. So we just have the last 2 here coming right up. Let's see. Man, I'm just excited just going back through this. This was such an insane project. Part of me can't believe I did it, but it was such a fun one. All right, the final power shaft. We unpaused it. The beavers are coming up. He's going to place the resources. Here's our final constructor, beaver. The final power line to connect all the power. Perfect. So everything is connected right now. It has not been connected to the actual power line, but this is the look, you guys. This is the power reactor. 3 arms, double floodgates. It looks awesome. Again, there are a total of 72 of these batteries, an insane number, and the core just looks so great. The design came out way better than I thought. Super happy with it. All right, now the next thing we gotta do is we gotta clean the job site. So I do want this to look like it's a natural, well, not necessarily a naturally occurring thing in the world, but I don't want to have anything around it because again, this is just a battery setup. You don't need any beavers taking care of things. The batteries will go up and down. You just got to make sure that obviously your power line is connected and then you're good. So we destroyed the district. The old Area 51 is now done, or whatever we ended up wanting to call it. So we're going to go ahead and just destroy everything, all the platforms. Everything's going to go. Again, only leaving the power line that is connecting things together, and I should be able to do that with just the current setup that I have. But it is funny to think again of all the necessary stuff we had to build just to get this thing going was pretty insane. But this is just a good part of it, just to make sure it's all nice and clean. I remember at this point they had introduced the clear rubble feature as well, which they didn't always have, so that was really nice to have. Obviously, I want to avoid accidentally destroying anything significant, clean things up, We're building the final power line. This is going to connect our batteries to the grid. Perfect. Completed. Now, you guys, welcome to my nuclear reactor / battery tour. Activating the battery. So again, they store 62,000 horsepower per battery. There are a total of 72 batteries on here. I basically can last. Right now it's cycle 56, day 9. I can last for a very long time. I don't know if I ever actually tested it, but it can last for quite a while because right now we're on day 10. We've lost about 5,000 horsepower. So if you think about it, that's basically I could go about 12 days at that rate. And again, this is I have 200, or now I'm up to 360 Robo Beavers. So we have a ton of them. But this is what it looks like. This is what I was looking for. Super happy. It comes out to a total 4.5 million HPH, or like 4.46. So I just round up to 4.5. But this is what I wanted to go with. You have the core in the middle. They're dropping the batteries into the water just like an actual nuclear reactor would, which I just thought was such a cool idea. And then they also do it on the arm. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, maximize your deductions and pay less in taxes. Have a great day.